pitfalls yet to come. You'll be shocked when you hear how this same method helped a woman from Houston, Texas avoid flying on a plane destined to crash. And amazed when I show you how one gentleman from Miami, Florida used this same method to hit the jackpot at his local lottery not once, but 3 times. And frankly, that's only the tip of the iceberg. Now wait right here. Those claims can easily seem over the top and unrealistic, leaving you more than a tad bit skeptical. And honestly, I wouldn't blame you if you are. Heck, even if I didn't know what I do now, or hadn't witnessed the things I've seen firsthand over my 16 years using this life-altering method, I probably wouldn't be convinced yet myself. It's important you know now. What you're about to discover has absolutely nothing to do with luck or chance, spiritual New Age beliefs, manifestation methods like the ones taught in The Secret, or so-called psychic abilities. And while it may feel like you'll now possess all those powers, in fact, this couldn't be more different. Listen, while it may feel as though you finally hold and possess the power of a crystal ball in your hands, let's get real and honest for a second. My methods are all grounded in logical mathematics and rational science, historically linked all the way back to Sigmund Freud. And just as Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla individually both discovered the power of electricity at the exact same time, this method you'll discover was since proven individually twice by 2 completely separate yet historically acclaimed scientists. Now, give me 2 minutes of your time with an open mind, and I'll not only make even the biggest skeptic a true believer, for the first time ever, I'll open up and share with you my untold story. A true story that'll make even the finest hairs on your arms stand up for attention and send tingling chills down your spine. Police department, search warrant! Police department, search warrant! Police department, search warrant! I could hear the sound of shattering glass as my front door violently had been knocked in. Caught completely off guard as officers surrounded me. Their rifles now point blank, mere millimeters away from my head, with fingers quivering over their triggers as the adrenaline pumped through their veins. At first glance to neighbors passing by, it must have looked like a scene straight out of a Hollywood SWAT movie. Yet my feelings of confusion and internal panic felt extremely real. "Get on the ground!" the one agent shouted as I instinctively dropped to the carpet beneath my feet. My heart started to jackhammer and I could feel my palms start to sweat profusely. In fact, upon their first impression, I must have looked extremely guilty to them, although I had no clue what I could possibly be guilty of or what even brought them crashing through my door that Thursday afternoon. I was quickly cuffed and walked forcefully towards their big black van by 2 officers on either side of me, while 2 additional officers followed closely behind. Just seconds before the police van door slammed shut, I could hear the deafening sound of at least 3 or more other officers inside aggressively tearing through my home. Come to think of it, the shock was so devastating, I'm still not sure to this day if I was actually even read my Miranda rights or not. Now, after what felt like an utter eternity sitting there detained, I was eventually brought into a small, windowless room. This room was bleak and consisted of 4 bare cement walls painted white, a solid white metal door, and a single video surveillance camera in one of the top corners with a little red blinking light. I sat there for another 45 minutes or so, all alone, until I heard steps echoing down the hallway outside of the closed door. I could see the slight shadow the shoes made under the door sill and anticipated with sheer terror what in my mind would be an aggressive interrogator bursting through the door with all his might. In fact, it couldn't have been more different. Through the door came a short little man who was slightly overweight, sporting large round glasses and slightly balding on the top of his head. "Thirsty?" he said, with a welcoming grin on his face as he handed me a cold bottle of water. After a round of basic questioning, he proceeded to ask me one question that made all this come crashing down to reality for me. Did you write this?" he asked in a gentle voice. On the table in front of him laid an overturned piece of paper. He proceeded to slide the paper toward me and slowly turned it over to reveal just what I had feared the most. On the other side was a printed screenshot of a public post I had made 2 weeks ago on a popular celebrity forum online. The pigment in my face turned from a pale white to an embarrassing blood red. I knew immediately where this was going. "Yes, why?" I replied as I stared at the printout with confusion. You see, exactly 2 weeks prior to Michael Jackson's death, I had posted on a popular celebrity forum. Things aren't looking promising for Michael Jackson. I'm actually afraid for his life at this point come next Thursday. The officer then leaned forward and in a stern voice looked at me in the eyes and said, Michael Jackson was just found dead in his home. You see, I had no clue. There was no possible way for me to know because the news of his passing had yet to even break for mass media. That's just how fast the police had worked tracking down every lead and angle possible. With sheer terror and a trembling voice, I replied, "It was just a prediction. It's something I just do for fun, looking up celebrity biorhythms." The interrogator looked confused, yet I noticed his ears quickly perked up. He proceeded to leave the room and come back presenting me with my personal laptop, confiscated from my home. "We found biorhythm software on your computer, but couldn't make sense of it," he replied. With him standing directly behind me, looking over my shoulder onto the screen, I then proceeded to show him my biorhythm graphs that use complex mathematical equations to plot out wavelengths. "This right here is called a biorhythm," I said, with the tone of my voice unconsciously switching from fearful to excited. "It allows us to calculate our body's natural cycles and clearly see on a graph how we will emotionally feel and physically experience the days to come." I could see this wave of confusion wash over his face, even at one point looking up at the camera with an expression on his face as if he was saying, "Are you getting this?" to whoever would be watching the live feed in another room. Yet, he'd become more curious to understand what the heck I was talking about. I put it to them this way, and maybe you'll relate to this as well. Have you ever had a plain old terrible period in your life? A point in time when absolutely nothing ever went your way? A chain of unfortunate events that makes you humorously say, "What worse could possibly happen next?" only to go on and actually have something worse occur? If you've ever heard the expression, "when it rains, it pours," that is exactly what I'm talking about. And in a second from now, I'll show you why this common expression is much more than just a saying. It's proven science that you'll be able to see for yourself firsthand in your own life, giving you what no one else has been able to do until now. Have a clear visual heads up and way to avoid future catastrophe altogether. Just like a weather forecast, you'll be able to have the power to look at what's ahead emotionally, mentally, and physically for you in the days to come. Instead of seeing a chance of rain or sun, you can use this data to your advantage to precisely forecast love, wealth, health, and yes, even tragedy, just to name a few uses. If Michael Jackson knew about his own biorhythm, he'd most likely still be alive today. I continued on to show him what my own biorhythm looked like that day, and beside it, I placed on the table Michael Jackson's. On the day of his death, you could clearly spot a very rare anomaly on his chart. Upon revealing this to him, the next words to come out of his mouth still brings a giant grin to my face this day. The interrogator gradually bent forward to where his head was now level with mine and looked closer at the screen of the laptop. He muttered in my ear softly, with pure curiosity, the words, "Now, show me what my biorhythm looks like." By that point, he was so amazed and wanting to dig deeper into the math and science behind what I was doing, it was nearly like we had all just forgotten that a few short moments ago, police had crashed down my door to detain me for a potential murder. It was only when he told me he'd have to confiscate my laptop and phone, it all came crashing back to me. I understood that as part of the investigation process, they would have to mine my devices for any potential evidence, and because I had nothing to hide, I let them take it freely. Now, this may shock you, while it may be no surprise to some. They never returned my laptop to me or even let me know that I could come and pick it up. What upset me the most wasn't the loss of my physical property. To be honest, the laptop was already extremely outdated and old to begin with. I could replace it with a single trip to the store and probably be better off for it. What I couldn't replace, however, was a piece of the biorhythm prediction software I had coded myself over years of hard work, using advanced mathematical calculations, custom algorithms, and plotting data on endless graphs. I'd have to start all over. I'm not sure if you've ever been unfortunate enough to experience this in your life. Yet have you ever worked hard on, say, a Word document or a like, only to have your computer crash and lose everything? If so, you know how incredibly infuriating it can be. It happens less with today's technology, but back in 2009, this was a very real and common struggle, often called the blue screen of death. Put yourself in my shoes for